Good day, this is Steve Anderson, and we're just minutes away from starting our very special Crown Council webinar today. I hate insurance, the myths, methods, and proper management of your patient's benefits. There's been a high degree of interest in this topic, obviously, and we appreciate all of your questions that have come in over the last couple of weeks. We're going to do our best to address all of those questions, as well as ones that might come in during the webinar. You are in listen-only mode. If this is the first time you've attended one of our webinars, that's so that you will be able to hear uninterrupted without any background noise. As we go along, when you have questions, you're welcome to enter those in the question area of your control panel that's on your screen. So if you just click on that arrow, and then there's you can type in any question that you'd like there. So feel free to do that. We will take the questions near the end of the planned presentation and do our best to get to as many of those questions as possible. Let me just give you a couple of quick updates while we're inching to the top of the hour. We had a great annual event in February in Las Vegas. Was one of the best ever, record attendance. We just had an amazing time. We announced at that annual event the next Crown Council annual event in Nashville, Tennessee, January 30th through February 1st, 2020. So a huge response to that already. And with signups that have already exceeded what we had last year. So we're very excited about that annual event and everything that will come along with it. So you are welcome to go to ccannualevent.com for all the details of the Crown Council annual event coming up in Nashville, Tennessee. It will be a banner event in that it will be the 25th annual event of the Crown Council. We have some very, very special things planned. So very much looking forward to that. Smiles for Life is underway for 2019. Everyone is very aware that we have surpassed the $42 million mark in total monies raised and donated over the life of the Smiles for Life campaign. If you're participating this year, which we hope you are, you have all of your materials in hand and as well as your whitening kits, and should be well underway. So we are looking forward to that. We did a big press release, and just in the last week, there have been 43,000 headlines, digital headlines around the world about the Smiles for Life campaign. So very excited about that. This year's campaign promises to be the biggest ever, and appreciate all of your efforts to make it a huge success and benefit the lives that will gain from all of the hard work that goes on there. So with that, we will get started with our webinar. Our topic today, I hate insurance. This has come by popular demand based on dozens and dozens and dozens of questions from Crown Council offices all over the country. We have put together a packed webinar today with tips and tricks and suggestions and recommendations based on the hundreds of offices that we work with through the Crown Council and Total Patient Service. So our resident expert today is Pam Peterson, who I'm sure all of you know. Pam is the president of Total Patient Service. She runs the show and has spent an entire career in dentistry and stays very up to date on all things insurance as well as all things practice management. So she's put together a great presentation today packed with information. Again, you're in listen only mode. You're welcome to submit any questions as we go along in your question box in your control panel. We will track those and do our best to address as many of those as we can. If you submitted questions before that, before the webinar, we have tried to work as many of those questions into the formal presentation as possible. So with that, I welcome Pam Peterson. Pam?
Thank you, Steve. I'm excited to be here. Thank you guys for tuning in this afternoon. I'm excited to spend lunch with you on a favorite topic, which is insurance. I'm sure the topic, the title got your attention. I hate insurance. Well, let's start off for the most part of what it looks like for us every single day, which is smiling faces, thumbs up. I know for the most part, everything that we do, we get excited about. And occasionally, that 10%, sometimes 15% will come in and really rake us over the coals regarding money, especially insurance. How many of you have ever seen this before? Copays are due at the time of service. We will bill your insurance out of courtesy, but it is your responsibility to make sure you're covered for this visit. Now, I know that you're thinking, what is that? One bad experience after another changes the way we feel about presenting treatment plans. It takes one patient to really make us feel like this and having that dreadful conversation regarding insurance coverage. Our team, we can tell immediately when a medical or dental office has had a bad patient experience. When we walk into the reception area, it looks as if a dental gang, G-A-N-G, broke in overnight and covered the entire office with graffiti. An example is what you see on the screen. This is when you put something in place where you feel like I am going to teach our patients a lesson. An example would be payment is due when service is rendered. Your insurance is an estimate. Mind you, estimate is in all caps. This means that I want you to listen to me. So it's an estimate. So if there's a balance due, it's your responsibility to pay it. Now, am I over-exaggerating? Maybe slightly. I can share with you an example that I have that I received this week. Lynn, who works for our client support team, we've worked together for almost 3 years now. She took her father to a neurologist appointment post-surgery. She walked in and she immediately noticed, posted on the wall, if you can't pay, we will not see you. Now that is drastic. That's a neurologist. And so let's talk about what puts us in a position to talk this way, because I totally understand it. I've been on both sides. So what I put together is the 7 biggest reasons why I hate insurance. And occasionally I'll say why we hate insurance, because I want company. All right, so today we're going to cover the 7 steps. So regardless if you are fee-for-service or in network with an insurance company, this will apply to your practice if you receive payments from insurance companies. Step number 1, that claim was never filed. How often have you been frustrated when you filed a claim and you've performed a search warrant to locate the claim? When this happens, I know it drives you crazy. The first place we will do is we'll call the insurance company. This will frustrate you more because you waited listening to annoying elevator music, and finally someone will answer your call, and you can tell that they're disinterested, not amused, task-oriented, while they're asking you for your credentials before they help you. And then within seconds, they will say, sorry, we do not have that claim on file. I know that this has happened often. Now, I want to address an elephant in the living room. It's no secret that sometimes people do the wrong thing. And it's highly unlikely that there's a mysterious woman or man in the corner of a dental insurance company that's waiting for your claim to arrive so that they can shred it. Now, it is possible that your claim landed in an incomplete file. And let's discuss those areas to check first. So there are 3 claim submissions that you must know. Notice I said claim submission. If your practice submits electronic claims, there is a company that you work with that's a third-party company. And there are 3 reports that will help you manage the relationship between your practice and your claim submission company. The first one is the validation report. The second, confirmation report. The third is the clearinghouse. Now let's break this down. Let's talk about the first one, which is the validation report. The validation report gives you the status that your claim was received. This doesn't mean that it was transmitted. It just validates that it was received. Now, the validation report has 2 sub-reports. The first one is a warning report. The warning just states that the company can tell that it's missing documentation that is needed to go with the claim in order for your payer to submit reimbursement to you. The third sub-report is rejected. So you'll get a warning and a rejected after you send the validation report if you are missing necessary information. And I know you guys know what I'm talking about regarding missing information, which is necessary x-rays, perio chart, post x-ray for endo, all of the procedures that you know that there is information that the insurance requires in order to process the claim. You get 2 warnings. You get a warning and a rejected. Now this is going to sound odd. You can still submit the claim if you receive a warning report and a rejected report, and you run the risk of no reimbursement. So I highly recommend that if you get a warning or rejected, please take care of what's needed so that you get prompt payment. The second report is confirmation. Remember, the first one I said is validation. The second is confirmation. And yes, confirmation means exactly what it says. Confirmed. This confirms that your claim submission was received. The third is what we're wanting is the clearinghouse. This is the final step before submitting your claim to the insurance company. The clearinghouse has a process called scrubbing in order to avoid rejected claims. The goal is for the biller to receive a clean, error-free claim. Does that make sense? I hope you're nodding your heads. All right, let's do a recap. This is your 3 e-claim submission report. The validation, which has 2 sub-reports. It'll warn you. You'll get a warning or a no, rejected, if it's missing information. The second report is a confirmation report, and the third is clearinghouse. These reports may have slightly different names depending on your software, and they will always be in place, especially if you are using a third party to help submit your electronic claims. Only handle it once. That's one of our favorite acronyms that the TOPS practice advisors use. We know that working in a dental office, there are so many moving parts, and we hear that dreadful phrase, I don't have enough time. We always look for areas that we can do things right the first time so that you won't have to do it again the second time, and it will free you up so that you can really provide patient care, and it will minimize the hatred of insurance. When I see only handle it once, I think about the late Nate Hudgens. He was the first dentist that I worked for, and he would always say, well, you didn't have time to do it right this first time, you will the second time. Today, I know exactly what he's talking about. He's talking about Ohio. Only handle it once so that it frees you up to do the things that you enjoy. Now let's talk about some things that'll help you with the submission in addition to the 3 reports that I just reviewed with you. The first, make sure that insurance is verified prior to the patient's arrival. Now there are many ways to verify insurance. The old school way is, yes, you have to call and you're on the phone. I recommend, along with the TOPS practice advisors, is to do in addition to. There are a lot of insurance companies where you can get the information online. You also can get it automated. And if you have a fax machine available, they'll also fax it to you. So utilize all different sources as opposed to just the old school way of staying on the phone waiting for them to answer. Number 2, written practice system followed by the entire team on information needed to support the claim. Why is this important? Well, it's important for the business team and the clinical team to be on the same page. The clinical team, when they know what's needed as far as a pre or post-operative x-ray, they will have the mindset to make sure that it's done. Also, our hygiene team, making sure that there is a 6-point measurement with all the documentation when submitting for perio reimbursement. Now, I did mention that insurance requires this. When you powwow with your team and you go over your practice systems, make this about your doctor's standard of care. Most of the time, whatever insurance needs to make a sound decision based on the patient's reimbursement, your doctor needs it for his or her standard of care as well. It's important to talk about your doctor's standard of care first, insurance requirement second, so that we always focus on what's important, which is your doctor's standard of care. Just so happens insurance needs the same information. Next, identify a primary and secondary accountable insurance submission coordinator within your practice. Now, you may come up with a different name, and let me tell you why it's important to have a primary and secondary. If you have a primary person that is their thing, that's what they do day in and day out, it's important to make sure that you have a backup plan. If the primary person takes a day off, you want to make sure that you have a system in place where it's a well-oiled machine, or it will not back up because you have one person that needs to take off for personal time, vacation, or if they are overwhelmed with information, they could also bring the secondary person in to help them. You want to make sure that your systems are all the way through your practice, so not just, it doesn't rest on just one person. Let's talk about number 2, why I hate insurance. How many of you have ever said, that's not what I filed for? My code was changed. Is that legal? Well, the payer may not change the CDT code submitted, and the payer can remap, R-E-M-A-P, the reimbursement to another code. Remapping simply means the payer, the insurance company, recognizes the code submitted and provides payments based on an alternative code. Let's talk about what that means. This was a great pearl that I was excited to get from Dr. Charles Blair and his team, the word remap. This is used for, this is insurance language, not ours. Our language is downgrade. So with insurance companies, in order for them to remap or pay at a lower rate, this is the wording that they use, remapping, which is, our word is downgrade. So now most likely you'll wonder, will insurance continue to talk to us using the word downgrade or remapping? They will continue to use layman's terms, downgrade, because that's what it is. And if you look at your information in your agreement, it will say remapping. So let's talk about frequently remapped codes. Resin-based composite restoration, posterior, they're remapped to amalgam. This has been around for a very long time, and some of us are still surprised and still not happy about it, and I get it. The next one is a porcelain ceramic crown remapped to a cast noble metal. Now, I just put a couple up for an example. There are a number of frequent codes that are remapped, and what I would like for you to do as a team is jot those down. Now, what we recommend is to have a clear understanding by adding the question to your verification form, asking what codes will they downgrade. The majority of the time, it is posterior codes, posterior restorations that will be remapped to amalgam. If you are in network and you receive insurance payment, the majority of the practice will not pay 80% coverage. So when you are updating your payment coverage table and you know that this code is frequently remapped, what we recommend from our top practice advisors is we will put in 55 to 60%. Now, you don't have to guess. What you can do is review your fee schedule, grab a few EOBs, have a business team meeting, and kind of go over those codes that are remapped. And this will give you a better average as far as what your code is. And what we recommend, it's anywhere between 55 to 60%. If you are entering 80% in your coverage table, you run the risk of having to bill the patient later and having a conversation why it was not covered. It's always important to let them know in the beginning. The goal is to have a better plan when you're talking to patients about what their estimated coverage is. Number 3, they sent the check where? How many of you have this happen to? What do you do when the insurance check is sent to the patient versus you? I don't have a good answer why someone would spend money that they know that was not intended for them. Maybe when they see their name on the check, amnesia sets in. This will always remain a mystery. Let's discuss a couple of options that we do have control over. Option number one, you want to make sure in your reference box, in your preference box for filing insurance, there are two boxes that must be checked. The first one, release of information. The second one is assignment of benefits. It's important to make sure that those two boxes are checked. This sends the message to the insurance company that it's okay to send the check to the practice versus the payment, versus the patient. All right, now you see 20 states and you're wondering, what is this all about? The second step is, I would like for you to check with your state dental association to determine the regulations pertaining to your state. Currently, there are 20 states that have adopted the legislation that prohibits the payer from sending reimbursement to the patient when the assignment of benefits agreement has been signed and the state is regulated. Those two boxes that I just showed you, when the patient agrees and it's a state regulated plan, then it prohibits the check going to the patient. It should go to the practice. Now here's a quick list. I know you're checking to look for your state. Here's a quick list of 20 states that have adopted the legislation. If your state is or isn't listed, we still recommend that you trust but verify. Make sure that you check and to see if your state is a legislated plan. All right, how many of you remember this from the 1980s? MC Hammer. Can't touch this. That was my jam back in the day. Well, there's one insurance company, this is on their playlist on repeat. This is Delta Dental. They play dun, 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 dun. Can't touch this every single day. So if you are out of network, which we call, when I say we, I'm talking about TOPS, our TOPS team, we refer to as an unrestricted provider, which gives you an opportunity to really take care of the patient without any restrictions, and your state is or isn't regulated, we recommend that you collect 100% and the reimbursement will go directly to the patient. When you are not in network with Delta, they have an all-in policy. And I did say policy, and I did that on purpose. They don't have guidelines. Policies are rules. Rules are not made to be broken when it comes to Delta. So if you are not in network and you see a patient that has Delta insurance, most of the time, 99% of the time, the check will go to the patient. So we recommend that you collect 100%. And you're like, Pam, how do we do that without upsetting our patients? Well, it's all about making the benefit for the patient. And I have invited a fantastic actor that just flew in from Hollywood to help me with this. As if I am coming in, I have Delta insurance. I just completed my treatment. Steve is the lovely business team member. And Steve, how would it go? How would you recommend we make the benefit about the patient?
All right, so first disclaimer is there was a very low budget for actors for this webinar, and I'm delighted to share the verbal skills here. So if we're going to make sure that it's clear what's going to happen and how we do the financial arrangements, if Pam were the patient, here would be some recommended verbiage. I would say, so Pam, how was your visit today?
It was great. Thank you for asking.
Fantastic. We're excited that we're able to get everything done today, and you look awesome.
Thank you.
As always. So is it all right if I go through the financials here?
Absolutely.
A few details. So the total for the treatment today is $2,000.
Okay.
The estimate of your insurance savings that you will get back from your insurance company is $500.
Okay.
And we've gone ahead and we've completed the claim form for your insurance savings benefits. I've provided a copy for you here for your records. We will go ahead and submit that claim today. It is not uncommon for our patients to receive a check back for their insurance savings within a week to 2 weeks. So
Okay.
You could expect that in the mail when it comes back from your insurance company.
Okay.
How would you like to take care of the total today? Cash, credit card, what works best for you?
Okay, so it's going to come directly to me.
Your insurance savings will come directly back to you based on whatever your agreement is with your insurance company. So you should, like I said, you should get that check back in a week or two.
Okay. Okay. Sounds good.
So when that would be obviously post, but obviously when you're setting up the financial arrangements is when you would do that, is to very carefully explain that the check is going to come back directly to them. It is their relationship with their insurance company, and you can use those words, your insurance company, your insurance benefits, as a courtesy and a convenience. We've gone ahead and filled out the claim. Here's a copy of it. And we will go ahead and submit that on your behalf today to your insurance company. You should hear back from them in a week or two with your insurance savings. So you may have to repeat that a couple of times. That might be different for some people, and you can reassure them that, in most cases, that money will come back to them quickly, so that they'll be able to realize the savings that their insurance provides.
Thank you, Steve. All right, so before we move on to number 4, I'll give you time to jot this down and make a commitment. This takes practice. So on the verbal skills that Steve just showed, don't expect for all of your teams to just go in there willy-nilly. Take time and practice at one of your weekly team meetings, not just once, not twice, but make it a part of what you do weekly. Practice makes perfect, and I know you've heard that before. All right, reason number 4 why I hate insurance. I'm up to my ears in statements. How many of you have felt that way, buried in statements? Now, you've probably noticed a process starting from 1, 2, 3, and 4. Every step supports the other. When you are up to your ears in statements and you check the 3 reports, the claim submission report, that means everything was done correct the first time, Ohio. That in return, that will give you a great reimbursement. If you check to see all of your claims that are coming back that are remapped and you have not made the adjustments as far as codes that were remapped or downgrade, then you're going to be up to your ears in statements. If your team fails to follow your financial guidelines and create finances on the side that is not a part of what you do, which is cash, check, MasterCard or Visa, third-party financing, to split it into 2 payments, anything except for 12 months of payments, unless you have permission from your doctor for ortho or specific procedures. So let's kind of drill down what are some things that you can do so that you are no longer up to your ears in statements. The first, you want to check your e-claim submission reports at the end of each business day. And it's important to assign who's going to check this. The goal is to make sure that when you look at that report where it says validation, confirmation, and clearinghouse, you should see the right numbers by each one of those. So an example would be if you sent 20 claims, you should see the number 20 by validation. You should see the number 20 by confirmation. You should see the number 20 by clearinghouse. Now, if you see warning or rejected, you want to see a 0 by those 2 because those will show up as well. The second, follow the practice written financial guidelines and please collect the day the service was rendered. Identify 3 third-party financial companies to partner with. There are a ton of learning tools on Crown Counsel. One of my favorite is 50 Ways to Pay, and it talks about third-party financial companies to partner with so that they become the bank as opposed to your practice. And last but not least, make sure that all the team is trained, even if they don't present financial arrangements. The next one, file insurance within 24 hours. And when you're looking at this, you're thinking, of course we do. You would be amazed how often we see that insurance is just sitting almost at a status of waiting to be sent. You want to make sure that you submit insurance within 24 hours and check the 3 reports at the end of each business day. These next 3 reports that I'm going to talk to you about is different than the claim submission report. The claim submission reports that we talked about earlier, those are the reports that you check to ensure that everything's in a good place between you and your e-claims company. These 3 reports check everything on our day in and day out operations. Like I said earlier, I know that there's a lot of plate spinning on the business side, so you always want to have the 3 reports checked to ensure that everything was done. The first one is insurance claims not set. The second, procedures not attached to insurance. And the third, secondary insurance claims not set. Now, whether you take secondary insurance or not, most don't, I still check this report. Just a flip of the wrist, sometimes you can make a mistake and submit to the wrong place. The goal is to make sure that all 3 of these reports are blank at the end of every day. Ohio, only handle it once. When posting payments, this is pretty creative. We love working with, I'm sorry about that. When posting payments, if the patient has a balance, send the statement the same day. Don't enter notes in your software. Don't just enter notes in your software to follow with the patient. When you are posting payments and you see that everything has been exhausted and the balance is due with the patient, go ahead and send a friendly statement that day and enter the notes that you sent the statement so that you can have some follow-up and all the teams on the same page. This is practicing Ohio, only handle it once. Number 5, the aging report is aging me. Now, many of you will know that number 5 and number 4 and 5, they kind of follow each other as far as statements and aging reports because it's a never-ending job, and I know sometimes it can be mundane. Being mindful of the aging report is important because it gives you immediate feedback regarding the practice internal and external financial guidelines. The aging report shows money owed to the practice from insurance and the patient. So we recommend our TOPS team that you work the aging report in addition to all the other responsibilities throughout the day. A long time ago, the aging report had a date pinned on them, work by the 15th. That is long gone. If you wait until the 15th to work your aging report, you'll never get it done. There are 2 aging reports. There's one that's called Insurance Aging Report that many of you are familiar with. It will give you feedback on insurance that is overdue. It'll always tell you what's current. It'll tell you what's over 30 days, what's over 60 days, what's over 90 days, and what's over 120. That's your insurance aging report. It's important to work that daily. Treat it like hygiene. We make sure that we brush our teeth and our hygiene is up daily. So treat your insurance aging report as if it's hygiene. Work it daily to make sure that the number of pages are minimal. The second is aging report. It tells the whole story. It doesn't have insurance in front of it. It just says aging report. The aging report has all of your insurance information on it, and that last column, it has money that's due from the patient. Now, in that column, it can mean several things. It could mean that you have a payment plan in place for a pretty extensive treatment plan or a long-term treatment plan such as ortho, or it could mean that money was not collected from the patient. A lot of times when procedures have been downgraded and we're searching trying to figure out what to do and trying to collect from the patient and not getting a response, that last column gets larger and larger and larger. So you want to make sure that you don't just work the insurance aging report, work the full aging report, and have a goal to get the pages down. I love listening to business team members when their aging reports started out at 10. They don't ever say how much money they collected, which was a lot. All they'll say is, my aging report was 10, I got it down to 2. So come up with a fun game on your business team so that you can report this information to each other and minimize your aging report so that patients are taking care of their payment and that you're no longer aging by the aging report. Number 6, I'd like to see what my insurance covers first. Now, when you see the fingers crossed behind the back, I don't know if that's the patient's fingers or if it's our fingers or maybe both. Let's talk about the 2 pre-Ds that gets us into trouble. There is pre-authorization and predetermination. What is the difference between the two? Pre-authorization is defined as a required process which allows the providers to determine coverage, and an authorization must be secured. Now, in some cases, but not many, this does happen in the dental industry. Mainly, this is in medical. Predetermination allows services for treatment to be reviewed for necessity. In layman's terms, this is a prolonged way of verifying benefits. Were you aware that at the bottom of a predetermination, it says the same thing when you are verifying benefits? It says this is an estimate and not a guarantee of payment. When we see pre-Ds that show up, that's the slang word for predetermination, by the way, pre-Ds. When we see them show up, we see stacks and stacks and stacks of papers in a folder. And this can be for one or two things. One, approval addiction, not wanting to be shot as the messenger and wanting to be really spot on so that you don't ever have to have the conversation again like you had with the one patient when he or she did not get the reimbursement that they thought that they should have. So you want to make sure that you go back to steps 1, 2, 3, 4, go all the way back to steps 1 through 4, and this will minimize the need for predetermination or a pre-authorization. The practices that we work with, they do not pre-D and they don't pre-authorize unless it's required by the carrier. Number 7, is the water getting warm or is it boiling? It's not my fault your insurance did not pay. How many of you have had that before where there's some finger pointing? When a patient doesn't have a clear understanding of what you will do on their behalf, they really don't know what to do. So you want to make sure that you are following your financial guidelines and you're having a clear conversation with the patient and following your guidelines. I keep saying guidelines because our TOPS teams, we omitted the word policy. No one wants to be hit with the policy. We chose the word guidelines because guidelines are created to support and create expectations for the patient. We hear it a lot. How do you get patients to really hear what we said? We said estimate and they do not hear what we're saying. So how do we combat that? When you have a patient comes in and say, my insurance didn't pay, it's your fault. It's not just from one reason or two. It's one of the steps. There were 7 that we've gone over. And so it's one out of those 7 that got in the way in order for a patient to be for them to misinterpret what will actually be covered. So number 1, you want to make sure, and I know that I'm hitting this drum pretty hard, you want to make sure that you update your payment table if you're constantly getting downgraded for composite restoration, because this is what we hear often. You also want to make sure that when you are talking to patients that you follow your financial guidelines. When Steve gave the example, we always talk, when he gave the example of how to give the information to the patient, we always talk about the benefit, what we will do for the patient versus what we want them to do for us. And you want to make sure that they know when you are saying that it is an estimate, that you don't have to circle it or highlight it or make it red. Just let them know. If you said to me, Pam, what I'm going to do on your behalf, I am going to get a breakdown of your insurance savings and our team stays up to date on it every year. In the event that your insurance does not follow through and cover like we expected them to from the estimate that they gave us, they will alert both of us. You'll get an alert in the mail and so will I. I will make it a point to call you in the event that there is a balance due. How does that sound? Because the patients will receive an EOB just like your practice will. You want to make sure that you're on the same side and not in the middle where you're trying to decipher whose side to be on, the patients or the insurance. Insurance is designed as a support, not the end all. So that's the paradigm shift that I want us to have. Now, we may still hate insurance, but I want us to minimize it, especially if there are some things that we have control over, and if there's some steps that we're missing, we can make sure that we minimize the hatred because there's some things that we have control over. Let's talk about some things to act now on based on those 7 steps. The first, you want to make sure that you are diligent. Follow your system. Don't rely on remembering everything. When practices are working together, and we work with them all over the country, don't be ashamed to have like a little mini checklist to ensure that you are doing things right the first time. Communicate. Communicate with each other. If you are failing to get the documentation that you need for reimbursement, let your team know. Don't wait until it's too late. Don't wait until you get in boiling hot water. Let them know, team, we're in this together. These are the things that I need. I got a couple of claims back, and I want to make sure that we receive reimbursement for our practice and our patients. The next, follow through. Follow through means check those 3 reports. If you see a warning or if you see a reject, go ahead and stop doing what you're doing. Take care of it so you don't have to worry about it later, and then send it on its way. Don't gamble. Don't treat your practice like Las Vegas. The last one, follow up. When you have submitted a claim and you've gone through the whole process and you're working your agent report, if it's been about a week and a half to 2 weeks, it's okay to follow up. I would highly recommend it. We always know when a practice has healthy systems in place, all you have to do is sit down and post checks and look at the date. Most insurance reimbursement checks will be anywhere from a week to 2 weeks, especially if you practice Ohio, only handling it once, sending all the necessary information that the payer, which is the insurance company, needs to make a sound decision on behalf of the patient. We got some great questions, and like Steve said earlier, if we can't get through all of them, we will make sure that we follow up with you. All right, so I have just randomly pulled a couple of the questions. Number 1 is, we have several insurance companies this year, including alternate course of treatment clause. How can insurance companies dictate patients' course of treatment? Is this the future? Is this the future to come? Sincerely, frustrated in Carolina. Now, if Carolina is frustrated, we're in trouble because they are nice folks. All right, so the answer, and my resource for this is Delta Dental in New Jersey and Connecticut. Now, every payer may be slightly different. In cases where alternative methods of treatment exist, benefits provided for the least costly professionally accepted treatment, which means if they are going to pay lower, this determines it's not intended to reflect negatively of the dentist's treatment plan, or the recommended treatment should be provided. Its determination is the benefit is under terms of patient's coverage. The dentist and the patient should decide the course of treatment if the treatment is rendered in other benefited. The difference between Delta's allowance and approval amount for the actual treatment rendered is collectible from the patient. Now, let me tell you what that means in layman's terms.
That means we're going to get by as cheap as we can.
Yes, for them. So they was eloquently written. And so in layman's term, what that means is, no, they are not dictating how the dentist should diagnose and the course of treatment and what a patient should expect for their treatment. What they're saying is, dentist, you go ahead and diagnose that way, and we will remap and place it with an alternative code for lower reimbursement. There are a lot of payers, so I want you to make sure that you get a good breakdown. There are a lot of payers that will still allow you to bill the patient as opposed to writing it off. Please do not write it off until you have a clear understanding what the payers will do.
So one of the questions that we just submitted was, how is it legal for insurance companies to remap it? Well, it's legal because they put it in your contract. So if you go through and read the contract that you signed with the insurance company, basically it gives them the permission to do that. It's in the agreement.
Thank you, Steve. All right. So the next one, how do I get insurance companies to pay for core buildups without all the aggravation? We send pre-estimates along with pre-op x-rays, and we are sick and tired of this. Sick of playing games with Cigna. All right, so the answer for this, the service is considered inconclusive to another. And I know that many of you have heard this before. There are a lot of payers that will look at the code, and if it's a buildup, they will deem that the buildup is a part of the crown. So the reimbursement will only be for the crown. And they also will note that D2950 core buildup is a valid CDT code, and properly reporting is not considered unbundling. So if they reject it and you keep going back, they're going to say the same thing over and over because they deemed it part of the crown. And so, dear Barb, I'm sorry to give you that information. All right. Would there be, the next question, would there be a concern in writing off the patient's portion after insurance payment as a courtesy? Dear Mandy, no concerns regarding writing off the patient's balance as a courtesy, as long as you disclose, which means share, this information when the claim is submitted. Our TOPS teams, which are practice advisors, recommend writing this information in the remark box on the claim, and it's box number 35. All right, I have one more. All right, it says, I run into the problem of billing medical for general anesthesia code 00170 using a modifier 47. They either bundle the code to the procedure or come back saying it's an invalid code. But in my case, is there another way I should be billing for this? Dear Melanie, referencing medical dental cross-coding by Dr. Charles Blair, the code you are using, 00170 and 00176, is recognized code for anesthesia for intraoral procedures, as reported. There's also the CDT code for D9222 for deep sedation in general. Some CDT codes do not have a comparable crossover code, so what's suggested is for you to contact the medical payer to determine if the code is allowed.
Excellent. All right, a couple more questions that came in. First,
okay.
Says this: I keep having insurance companies requesting additional information after the claim has been submitted, even though I have NEA attachments with x-rays, all of the reports and supporting documents. How can I stop them from continuing to request additional information when it has been submitted correctly the first time?
Okay, that is a great question. First of all, hats off to you for Ohio and making sure that you measure twice and cut once. What I would recommend is, most don't do this, is I would call the insurance company and ask for someone on the management team. I would bypass speaking with someone that gives you a breakdown of benefits each day. So bypass them, get someone on the management team and share this concern. The insurance companies is a huge call center, and they are managing people day in and day out. And occasionally they will have a fallen soldier that is working there that shouldn't. And so by going to the management team, it will alert them that something's going on and will get this resolved. If he or she, the management team, is in a good place, they will thank you for bringing this to their attention. But that's what I would recommend. Very
good. Next one is what happens when a patient leaves our office because they're upset about paying 100% up front if we know that the check is going to go to them? So alternatives, suggestions, verbal skills.
Okay, so what happens when the patient leaves upset?
Well, they leave because they have to pay 100% up front and then wait for their insurance check to come.
Oh, okay. So where they actually decline to do treatment in your office.
Right.
Okay. All right. This is a conversation, and when your practice is set up to be an unrestricted provider, there are some that you will not be the practice for, but the majority you will, and those are the ones that we're going to go after. And so seek first to understand their reason for wanting to go somewhere else just because the check is going to go directly to them. And so, Steve, you want to go give it a run?
Go for it.
All right.
I'll be the patient this time.
All right. Perfect. All right. So, Steve, share with me your greatest concern. Is it having to pay the whole amount or to need to fit it into your budget?
Nobody's ever done it this way. They've always just filed the insurance and then, and then the insurance pays it.
Okay. So are you concerned about it being different or not working for you?
Different.
Different. Okay. Tell me more about that.
It's just, it's a lot of money to have to pay up front. And then I don't know if I'm going to get my insurance money or not.
Okay. I totally understand that. Steve, would you be surprised to know that we work with insurance companies day in and day out, and we are the advocate for the patient?
No,
okay.
It wouldn't surprise me.
Well, I wanted you to know that. So sometimes when you are surprised what your insurance will not pay, so are we. And we will do everything within our power to maximize your insurance savings, which is to give them everything that they need to make a sound decision. With that being said, is your decision solid as far as not wanting to stay with our practice?
Well, I guess we just need to figure out a way to make it work.
Tell me more about that.
Well, are you sure it's going to come? In other words, we can go on here, but here's the whole key to this is a lot of questions. If we make a mistake here, as with most everything else in treatment plan presentation, it's we tell too much and we ask too little. So the key is find out what their biggest concern is. If it's a timing question, is it the total amount that's an issue? You got to figure out exactly what their real concern is.
And can I add one more thing on this, Steve?
Yes.
If I am working in a practice that is an unrestricted provider, which means we are not in network, I am going to make time to follow up and follow through on any commitment that I make with Steve. So in the event when he comes, he said, okay, well, let's give it a whirl, then I'm going to make it a point to check in to see where his insurance is on his behalf. It's about how you treat the one so that he can tell others about us.
Perfect. Okay, a couple other questions before we wrap up. We have patients that will not have treatment done until a pre-authorization is sent before. So here would be a suggestion on this is what they're really concerned about is they don't want any unpleasant surprises. So I would say that if Pam were the patient, I would say, so Pam, it sounds like you don't want any unpleasant financial surprises about this treatment. Am I right?
You are 100% right.
Got it. All right. Can I make a suggestion?
Sure.
What we can do is we can send this in for pre-authorization with the understanding that a pre-authorization is not a guarantee of payment from your insurance company.
Okay.
So we can get it back. Here's what we estimate that your insurance savings will be. Based on that, if that is what they indeed come back and say they will do you see any reason why you wouldn't want to move ahead with treatment?
No.
Perfect. All right, so let's do this. How about if we do this? Let's go ahead and schedule the treatment today far enough out that we can submit for the pre-authorization and get it back in time before we start treatment. Then in the event that the pre-authorization comes back different than what we've discussed today, we can discuss how you would like to proceed. Does that make sense?
Sounds good.
Great. When would you like? And then go ahead and schedule it. So you can still schedule it, but schedule it far enough out that you can send the pre-authorization out and get it back with the understanding that that's no guarantee that that's what the insurance company is going to pay. Next question is, how do we update our fee schedule with our insurance companies we're in network with? Do we call each one of them? How do we get their fee schedule updated?
Insurance companies that you are in network with, they are required, and I'm not saying that they always do, to send you an updated fee schedule every year. Most of the time they come at the end of December or the beginning of January. We have to make sure that it didn't fall in with the junk mail. And so if you have not received them, I would request them from each of your insurance companies that you are in network with, and they'll send you a fee schedule and you can update your fee schedule.
A couple of additional resources for your consideration. We've written a great ebook entitled Should You Be Insurance Free that deals with the pros and cons of dealing with different insurance plans. So that's a free ebook. You can download it at totalpatientservice.com/insurance. That is available, so that it's a great companion to our webinar today, so that you can really go to work on the whole insurance equation. Resources for today for your information. Obviously, all the work we do at Total Patient Service and the Crown Council. There is a great program that Total Patient Service does all over the country with individual practices entitled Maximum Reimbursement that will maximize your treatment, your insurance reimbursement. For more information on that, you can email answers@totalpatientservice.com. And then finally, our next webinar next month on Tuesday, April 16th at noon Central Time is entitled More New Patients Now. So we'll talk about the latest new patient ideas in terms of how to generate more quality new patients for your practice at as little cost as possible. So that webinar is coming up. We'll send out an announcement on that today, so you can register for that today. Thanks for being with us today for our webinar. We hope that provided you with a lot of great information. This webinar will be posted at crowncouncil.com in the webinar section later today after it's edited and posted. We'll send out an email to everyone that attended today that was registered with a link to that, so that other team members in your practice can listen and learn as well. Thanks for joining us today. We look forward to being with you next month, Tuesday, April 16th, for more New Patients Now. Have a great day.